Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since we made a last video, right? So today we'll be starting with a new series called the Frontend Engineering. So if you're in the Duolearn groups, I have already shared an announcement regarding this. I think it was a month ago, but then we got some, internally we got some work and then we were busy, so we're not able to do that. So here we are starting our first episode of Frontend Engineering. So we'll start with the world of frontend today. So we'll learn about a couple of things that every front-end engineer should be familiar with and should not, should treat them as a principle or responsibility while building a front end. Okay, so this doesn't involve like what CSS concepts you want to learn, what JavaScript concepts you want to learn, what framework you want to use. It it just consists of the things that you should be familiar with in general. Of course, we'll look into some of the CSS concepts as well along the way. But today in this video, I'll talk about a couple of concepts or principles that you should be familiar with and you should not let them go regardless of what application you're building. It might be a simple contact page or it can be a fully fledged large scale industry level application. You should not trade off these principles that I'm going to teach you right now. Okay, you have to always implement them, and as you grow, as you evolve towards a senior engineer level, you should guide your juniors to keep them in mind as well. Okay, right, with that said, let's get started. So the first thing we have is, let's look at how the front end actually evolved, okay, from the beginning when the browsers were actually invented. So initially we had this initial browsers. I think it was called Netscape or something. So we had like HTML4, like basically the initial version of HTML. So if you remember using HTML, these tags like marq and everything, right? So that were the moment or time duration that we're talking about. Okay, and then we had like CSS, and then we had this Flash, XML, Java applets. I've used Flash, XML, Java applets, but I haven't actually had a chance to use ActionScript and ActiveX and everything. So as Ajax was all like Ajax is still used, okay, but it's just what do you say, masked up with fetch and Axios, but internally you guys still do Ajax request, okay. So all these were the initial version of the front end. Okay, we used to use bare bone HTML, bare bone JavaScript. Everything was just like there was no frameworks for you like React or Vue or anything. Everything was bare bone. You have to do everything from the scratch. Okay, that's how the things was. And then came like the markdown syntaxes. Then came like the couple of syntactical sugars for all our hard work. For example, you can say jQuery. So every time you write JavaScript, right, to do DOM manipulation, it can be like selecting an input field, selecting a button, adding event listeners to it, adding click event listener, adding a mouse up, mouse down event listeners. It was a tedious task to write in JavaScript. So jQuery came into picture, which made everything quite simpler with many easy to use syntaxes. But again, it's just another library dependency to do the same job. So you are doing the same DOM manipulation with just a few syntactical sugars. That's it. So there are many hate towards jQuery even now, but personally I think it was a really good tool. Okay, it reduced a lot of your syntaxes, but it introduced a couple of symbols which would make it very hard to read, especially for a beginner. But if you get experience to jQuery a little bit, you will find it really easy. Okay, so there are a couple of things that came into picture. We can see some of the logos here that I'm not familiar with as well. Okay, but moving on, we had some servers introduced, like there were Node.js coming in. There were some improvements in JavaScript like ES5, ES6, ES7 and everything. And we had a couple of upgrades on HTML itself. We had HTML5, which came out to be an amazing invention or update. We had a lot of accessibilities were inbuilt to the HTML tags. So if you've seen my previous classes, you know that HTML5 has many tags that has accessibility pre-built into it, right? So all these came into picture after a couple of years, like let's say around 2010 and 2010ish. Okay, and then we had SAS, which helps us to write a very good CSS as well, which is also which enables us to, which basically pre-process it and then enables us to achieve the cross-process compatibility, meaning that you write CSS once and that CSS will be compatible in all the browsers, no matter if you're using Safari, Chrome, Brave, whatever it is. It will SAS will make sure that it is pre-processed to be able to run in any of the browsers. Okay, that's what SAS is. And there was this less as well. Less is also one of the CSS library as well, but I haven't used it, but I've heard it's good. Okay, and then we had this Bootstrap. Everybody knows Bootstrap. Bootstrap is like one of the starting step for us, right? So we all know Bootstrap. And there is this thing called WebGL. I'm not sure if you can see this, but let me zoom in a bit. Yeah. So WebGL actually is like a graphics for the web. So if you want to build like a 3D animations, or if you want to build like games on top of browser, you used to use this WebGL. Nowadays there are better alternatives. Okay, and there are a couple more things. As I said, we have used so many things here, right? We have used Tailwind, we have used Stealth components. There is Bug, which is a templating engine, and then there are a couple more things like TypeScript work came in, and then like a lot of updates on JavaScript, ES6, 7 up to 12. And then there are it's Babel as well, which helps you convert it, and there is Ionic framework to build mobile apps. There is React, which you're already familiar with. There is Next.js, Vue, Swilet, and everything. So right now we're on 2023. I mean, of course, we're in the end of 2023, and we already see so many tools coming in, right? So there are. I've seen this guy on Twitter who's making React 70% faster. Okay, and I've seen this library called Quick, which would also make your React apps much faster. But there are a couple of things involved over there. They're all trying to reduce the JavaScript bundle. Okay, it's a bit advanced, but just think that they try to only load HTML and CSS and load the JavaScript only when it's required. So if you're clicking a button, they load the JavaScript of that button. If you are not clicking that button, they don't load the JavaScript of the button, so that the site is much faster. That's how they're doing it. So there are lots of tools coming in, and this WebAssembly here, which uses Rust, and we have Webpack, we know that, and Browserify, we have Grunt, we have Gulp, Rollup, Bundlers, Yarn, Parcel, and everything, right? So all these came into picture after many years. So from the beginning, when there was only HTML, CSS, and bare bones of JavaScript, people started to face these problems, right? People started to know, okay, I cannot write JavaScript for entire thing. I cannot bundle everything myself. Okay, this is taking me a lot of time to do it. Okay, wish I had this tool to take care of this. Wish I had this tool to automate this job. So they started to find problems when they started to collaborate and work towards a large scale product. Okay, if you're just working on a side project, you won't find much issues, right? You won't find much problems because you're okay with it. But when you're working with a team of 20 to 30 people building a large scale application, you will find it hard, to collaborate, to do some things. You wish some things were automated so that you don't have to spend your time on that and everything. So a lot of these tools came into picture because of these problems, right? So right now at 2023, we are at a stage that where we can automate every single thing while building a large scale application and focus on only building the logic. I mean, that's automated too with ChatGPT. You can just type in the prompt, and you might get you'll get partially around 50% of the logic will be written by ChatGPT for you, if you know how to work with it, right? But my point is that when we faced all these problems, frontend evolved. If frontend evolved from just being like shapes and colors to being a something worth developing. It gave you like this purpose of having all these tools, okay, and it's also overwhelming, but it gave you an idea to think out of the box. What if you think just okay, HTML is just CSS and JavaScript? Sorry, frontend is just CSS and HTML. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because now, when you look at these tools, when you read what they're solving, you get this brighter or this better exposure to what the actual problem is. Because nowadays, since it's a digital era, right? Everybody has a website. So as I was saying, so when you look at the problems these libraries are solving, example take React, right? Because all of us are familiar with React, right? So you get an idea like what React is solving. React is focusing on developers, trying to reduce the DOM manipulation thing, right? And take a look at SAS. It's pre-processing it so that your CSS would run on any browser. It's solving the problems of cross-browser support here. So there are so many things that we don't even have an idea that there's a problem and this might exist and it's worth solving. And these libraries are solving that. So when you understand what they're solving, you will understand what exactly the front-end dev does. Okay, what exactly the front-end dev is supposed to do, what exactly they're supposed to take care of, and what exactly should they have in mind while building or architecting a front-end application. That's how the whole thing is. That's what front end development is. It's not just about building like a simple contact page or anything. If you build a simple contact page, it's even harder nowadays. Let's say you're building a simple landing page for an e-commerce website, right? Let's say you, or else you're coming up with your own clothing brand. You want to build a website for it. Do you know how many things you want to take care of over there so that your website would rank on top of Google when someone search for it? There are so many things, right? You want to make sure the image is cached. You want to make sure the aspect ratio is correct. You want to make sure that there is not much JavaScript, what do you say? It's not like interrupting the whole rendering process, right? You don't have much JavaScript dependencies. You want to preload the scripts. You want to have SEO meta tags. There's a lot of stuff over there. Of course, from the outside, it just looks like simple HTML script, but it's way more than that. So throughout this whole playlist or episode or season of the front-end development engineering, we'll debug each and everything. Okay. So moving on, I have a couple more things in the sheet here. Let me just go over each and one of them. So it's fairly simple. So the first thing we'll have is the color psychology. So the front-end dev, you should know this, especially if you're also a designer come developer. Okay, there are a couple of vibe the color would emit when you use it on the website. So if you use blue, it's trust, confidence, calm. If you use red, it's energy, power, and green is for growth, calm nature, and everything. So usually if you look at these luxury clothing brands, right, so or they always have black, right? It's just minimal, it's just white and black, that's all, right? And if you go with some other websites, everything is just white, yeah. And if you go with some other website, everything is just like yellowish or bluish or something like that. So depending on what they are trying to be or what they're trying to come out for their audience, they would use these particular colors. And if you use a different color, the website will still be functional, but the way the user would feel while browsing the website, they might feel different. Okay, so always take a look at, you don't have to buy these things, just know like what type of color you want to use. Okay, or else you can just visit just Google color psychology, you'll get a lot of websites as well with a very big amount of details. You can just go through that and understand like what exactly you're looking for. Okay, and the next thing I have here is that a JavaScript can the chaos. So as I mentioned, right, so we have JavaScript and we are using JavaScript in a lot of ways here, right? So we're using JavaScript in a plain vanilla format, index.js or something like that. We use it inside React using JSX, and we use it in CSS using CSS in JS. There is this thing called style components which uses CSS in JS. So JavaScript is literally become this imposter in every single thing, right? It's good to see JavaScript developers getting these privilege or convenient way to literally build everything with JavaScript, but it's a chaos sometimes. If you use style components, you have to again interpret it, use it, convert CSS to JS, style it, and everything. But it makes it's really easy. It's convenient though for JavaScript devs. Of course, you have to take care of you have to structure everything properly, but it's good. Okay, and there is also this debate in terms of front end in many front end communities. People say when you use all these CSS and JS and other JavaScript libraries, right? So they would slow down your website because they make this dependency to load the scripts before the application renders, because your application has to be styled, correct? So what happens is that when your HTML starts rendering in the browser, it will slow down it. If it slow down or it will block the render process because it has to download the JavaScript script. Okay, the browser has downloaded JavaScript before rendering the HTML because there's a dependency on it. So it might slow down. So people would argue that we should not use CSS and JS or much of the JavaScript libraries. Focus on the native one. Use CSS to write CSS, use HTML to write HTML, and use minimal of JavaScript. And there are so many libraries which does this for you. Example, Quick. What Quick does is you write your application the way you want using React, but when you bundle it, Quick will separate everything. Okay, you can just Google QWIK. Okay, Quick will separate everything, and only if you hover on a button, the JavaScript related to that button will be downloaded. That's how it works. Okay, and coming up next, we have responsive development. Guys, focus on this, even if you are a beginner. Okay, every single time you're building a web app, okay, if you're building something for the web on the front end, it might be a simple page or a web application. Build it for the mobile first. Okay, open up your mobile phone. You can just preview it in your mobile, or else just inspect and then open this in a mobile screen. So you can just click on inspect. Okay, I cannot do this here. Let me do this here. You can click on inspect. You get a tab like this. Click on this icon here. Okay, you click on this icon, there you go. Okay, first build it for this screen here, for the mobile screen, and then click on this drop down, select iPad mini or iPad Air, which one works for you. Build it for the tablet devices, and then close this, build it for the PC. Okay, that's how you have to build it. It should not be the other way. You should not build it for the PC first and then come to the mobile. It's very hard to do it that way. Build it for the PC first. Okay, and this meme is really good. Like, I love how your website is impossible to read on a mobile phone. I have no idea how frustrated I get whenever I see these things happen, because when I'm working with my team, right, I do mention that I need this responsiveness. When I give out tasks to juniors, I tell them that, okay, I need this to be responsive, and build it for the mobile first. That's about it. I wouldn't give them a clear idea like how to structure the CSS as well. But when I get it, when I open this up in a mobile screen, the button will be on the right side here, and the content would be far away on the left side. I have to scroll it like this horizontally to view it. So don't do that. Okay, it's just like it will delay the things. That's it. Okay, and then coming up is aspect ratios. So remember when I said that if your website is having images, right, lots and lots of images, right, you have to make sure that everything is properly structured, that everything is properly handled. So you have to use aspect ratios. If you are using an image in your web page, use aspect ratios. Okay, I'll teach you what is aspect ratios along the way. I'll teach you how to implement them as well, but remember this. Okay, and up next we have a couple more things. We have one or two, that's it. So we have like error boundaries, loading indicators, handling missing pages. Crucial. Always have an error boundary, so that in case if you miss to catch some errors while working with the application in your logic, error boundary will catch them. Okay, it will be like the top layer of the error. And then we have loading indicators. Of course, every single time you are making something, if the user has to wait, it can be for a 1 second or less than 1 second, always have a loading indicator. Because you might not know, you might have a very good internet connection. Some user who might use your application might not. So they might end up waiting for 3 to 4 seconds. So if you don't show at least a spinner, they'll just click the button. They'll just get a feeling like, okay, nothing's happening. They click it multiple times. So always show a loading indicator. It might be a simple text saying loading, or it might be a simple spinner, or at least a dot that's blinking. Something. There are a lot of libraries that will give you very fancy way of adding a spinners, or fancy spinners, I would say. Just use something. Okay, and handle missing pages. So if you use Next.js and everything, you only get this inbuilt, like 404 page and everything. But in case if it doesn't, just make sure you have a 404 page. So in case if the user tries to enter some invalid route, we'll show them 404 page. Okay, simple text would do. Just say 404 not found, or just, hey, the page you're looking for doesn't exist. Okay, you can go to home page. Okay, so that these things are really important. Okay, please keep this in mind always. Coming to static and dynamic pages, this is very basic. You already know this one as well, but I just want to put this through. So if you're building pages like landing page or blogs or some details page, right, always go with static. Okay, when I say static, if you're using Next.js, try to use SSG or ISR, upload it to a CDN and serve it from there, so it's very fast. Okay, so, or if you're building with plain HTML CSS, don't just deploy it to AWS or something and serve it, because you don't get CDN and everything. Try to deploy it to Netlify or Vercel or something like that, because they would cache, they would upload everything to CDN network, so that everything is really fast. Your website will be served really fast. But in case if you have your own servers, let's say your company doesn't allow you to use Vercel, they have their own servers. If you upload it over there, in case if you're using AWS, make sure to upload your HTML files to S3, okay, and then use CloudFront. There is a service called CloudFront. I don't know the equivalent service in Google Cloud or DigitalOcean and everything. Because I'm only familiar with AWS. So use CloudFront to serve that HTML page, okay, because it's really faster that way, okay. And when it's a dynamic is whatever apart from these static pages. So if you're building a dashboard, if you're building like a login page, if you're building like this analytical page, basically whatever it is, it's all dynamic page, okay. So for the dynamic page, you can deploy it anywhere. You don't have to worry about serving it from through CDN and everything, okay. You can deploy it to anywhere, okay. At the end, we have the front-end security practices. Okay, this meme, right, it always cracks me up because I've seen most of the guys do this, especially the beginners guys. So guys, when you're making an API call, right, always there should be this, of course, this applies for the backend developers as well. If you're building an API, make sure you validate the input data. It might be a params, it might be a query, it might be a request body. Whatever it is, if you're getting at least a single data from the front end or the client, you have to validate it. And the client side as well, meaning the front end side. So do not just think like, okay, I validate it here and everything is done. Okay, no, your front end is vulnerable a lot. Okay, for example, if you have input, right, let's say input type email or input type URL or something, and then you would define some attributes over there, like it should be this particular URL, it should be this, or minimum length is 5, maximum length is 10. You would define this in your input field, you will deploy it. Anybody can inspect, go to the HTML, remove that HTML code, okay, and they can type in anything they want. It's possible. Okay, your front end validation isn't secure enough. Okay, think about this. And the next thing, always try to understand a couple of security practices. There is many things. I'll talk about those things right now. Along the way, I'll teach you like how the people can actually exploit your web apps and everything. Okay, so always make sure that you're following the best security practices. The security practices varies for companies to companies though. There are a couple of common common practices we follow. You can also use that, okay, but make sure that you follow that, okay. If you use libraries, if you use frameworks, they would take care of many things for you, but you guys have to take care of many of those tiny details, like as I said right now, the input field thing. You have to take care of that, okay, and clear out the states. If you're using React, right, once the request is done, once you're done with things, clear the states out. Don't leave the values hanging in over there. Clear it out, okay. And do not add console logs and deploy to production. It's fine at the development, but if you're having console logs a lot, just do not deploy to production right away, okay. Make sure to remove them, okay. So with that said, this will be the first episode, guys. I hope this made a lot of sense for you guys. This was just introduction and giving you a little bit of principles on what to have in mind while building an application. Okay, so moving on, I'll come up with a lot of different things as well. So we'll learn about some of the crucial CSS concepts. We'll learn about some of the crucial JavaScript concepts, and we'll learn about couple more things on the React side, Next.js side, and everything. I'll be using React and Next.js here because I'm not much familiar with Vue and Angular and everything, so you might have to take care of that. But the concept will apply for every single web app, every single framework you're using, regardless of if you're using Vue, Angular, Civil, or whatever it is. The concept will apply for them as well, but you will have to experiment with that. Okay. All right, then we'll meet again for the next episode.